Usually when we think about large-scale systems, like the architecture of a massive city, there's this underlying expectation of structural integrity. You assume the foundations are solid and everyone is essentially playing by the rules.
Right. You assume the blueprint matches reality, which, is a pretty dangerous assumption when there's money involved.
A very dangerous assumption. Because when you step into the world of national taxation and Social Security, you suddenly realize that what looks like a solid wall actually has all these hidden trapdoors.
Yeah, and for a long time, an entire subculture of people has been quietly using those trapdoors to, bypass the heavy tolls at the main gate.
Exactly. Which brings us to the Kaori Kido report we're looking at today. It's titled Nominal Directors and National Health Insurance. Okay, let's unpack this because this isn't just dry tax law.
Oh, not at all.
It's a massive, newly busted financial loophole in Japan's healthcare system. We're talking about a scenario where everyday freelancers and, well, even politicians were effectively buying their way out of staggering insurance bills.
Right, and triggering a sweeping government crackdown in the process. But to understand the sheer scale of that crackdown, we really need to look at the spark that ignited it.
Yeah, the government didn't just wake up one day and decide to audit everyone, did they?
No, not at all. Their hand was actually forced by a highly publicized political scandal in January 2026.
According to Kato's report, that's when news broke that several local politicians were expelled. They belonged to the Nippon Ishin no Kai, the Japan Innovation Party.
Right. And just to be completely clear for you listening, we have to note that we are not taking political sides here. We're just impartially relaying the factual events from the source material that triggered the policy change.
Exactly. We're just looking at the facts. And the factual reason for their expulsion was that they had taken on the title of director at these completely dummy general incorporated associations.
Yeah, and the subsequent investigation revealed that this wasn't just, a few isolated politicians acting independently. No, the entire framework, this whole network of dummy associations, was actually being run by a former public secretary of a House of Representatives member.
Wow.
They provided the vehicle, and these local politicians were listed as directors without having any actual substance to their roles.
So the scandal hits the front pages, the public is furious, and suddenly the Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare, the MHLW, they have no choice but to act. Right?
Exactly. They just couldn't ignore it anymore.
Yeah.
So on March 18th, 2026, they issue this emergency notification to health insurance associations nationwide.
Making it explicitly illegal?
Yep. They effectively declared war on the whole concept of the nominal director. This previously tolerated gray zone was shut down.
It's like finding a glitch in a video game that gives you infinite gold. For a while, everyone whispers about it on forums. Everyone uses it quietly.
Right. You think you've outsmarted the developer.
Exactly. Until eventually, some high-profile player streams themselves doing it, the exploit goes viral, and the developers are finally forced to issue a patch that ruins the fun for everyone.
That analogy actually holds up perfectly. But, we have to ask why people were looking for that glitch in the first place.
Right. Why risk it?
You have public figures risking their entire careers and freelancers risking their legal standing just for an insurance trick. There has to be a powerful motive there.
And the motive is just pure, agonizing financial pain. Kido lays out the math so well in the report. Let's look at the burden of national health insurance, or NHI.
Which is the default system for freelancers, the self-employed, and retirees in Japan. Right?
Exactly. Say you have a household making 8.5 million yen. The combined cost of your NHI and your national pension can reach roughly 1.28 million yen annually.
Wow. That is a staggering percentage of your income just vanishing before you even pay standard income taxes or buy groceries.
It really is. And this massive bill highlights a core structural difference between Japan's two main systems. You have the NHI for the self-employed versus the social insurance system used by corporate employees.
Right. And the NHI system has this fundamental, frankly, devastating feature for families. It has absolutely no concept of dependence.
Yes. So it's like a streaming service. Social insurance is the flat-rate family plan. A corporate worker pays one premium based on their salary, and their spouse and kids get profiles for free.
They're totally covered.
Exactly. But the NHI charges you a full price, separate subscription for every single profile in your house. The larger your family, the more the premium stacks up, even if those dependents aren't earning a single yen.
And to compound that financial injury, the benefits aren't even equal across the systems.
How so?
Well, if you're on corporate social insurance, you have access to sickness benefits if you fall ill and can't work. Plus, the future pension payouts are significantly better.
Mm.
The NHI system lacks those sickness benefits entirely.
Oh, wow. So you pay more for less coverage.
Yeah, Kido points out a deep structural paradox here. Japan achieves very high equality of medical provision, meaning everyone gets access to the same good hospitals, but it suffers from very low fairness of premium burden.
Yeah. Because you have two vastly different paying populations. The NHI pool is overwhelmingly made up of older individuals who require more medical care or people without jobs.
Right.
So the relatively small pool of the working generation who happen to be freelancers are forced to shoulder this massive financial weight to keep that specific system afloat.
Which creates an intense feeling of being trapped. I mean, when people feel disadvantaged simply because they don't work for a large corporation and they see a 1.28 million yen bill every year.
They start looking for a way out.
Exactly. The environment becomes incredibly ripe for exploitation.
Which brings us to the actual mechanics of the loophole. How do you take a 1.28 million yen bill and just make it disappear?
Right. It sounds like magic, but it was really just a brilliantly cynical manipulation of paperwork. It was essentially an arbitrage of legal definitions.
Okay, walk me through it.
Step one. The individual, let's say a freelance graphic designer, would find one of these dummy associations online and pay them a massive upfront annual fee.
How massive are we talking?
We're talking around 1.2 million yen out of pocket just to join.
Wait, really? So they're paying an employer to employ them. Here's where it gets really interesting. I mean, it's essentially buying a VIP pass to a cheaper insurance pool.
Yes, exactly. Step two. In exchange for that massive fee, the association hands them the official legal title of director or regi.
Okay.
Step three. The association pays that freelancer a tiny, almost laughable monthly executive compensation, something like 50,000 yen a month.
And let me guess, that 50,000 yen is the key that unlocks the trap door.
You got it. Under the old rules, corporate directors were eligible to join the corporate social insurance system regardless of how many hours they actually worked.
Oh.
The system didn't verify their primary source of income. It only looked at the salary they received as a director. So our freelancer enrolls based solely on that tiny 50,000 yen income.
Meaning they secure the absolute lowest possible premium rate. That 1.28 million yen NHI bill we talked about earlier completely vanishes because they've officially switched to the corporate system.
It's exactly. Between the association fee they paid and the new rock-bottom premium, their effective out-of-pocket cost drops to about 700,000 yen.
So the freelancer saves over 500,000 yen, and the dummy association pockets the difference between the massive entry fee and the tiny compensation they pay out.
On paper, it functions smoothly. The individual saved money, the association made a profit, and the insurance system processed the paperwork because it, well, technically complied with the letter of the law.
You are literally handing over 1,000,000 yen to a shell company just so they can stamp your passport and let you into the corporate tax bracket.
It highlights a severe blind spot in the administrative process. The system never actually checked to see if a director was directing anything. It just saw the title and opened the gate.
But that VIP pass has officially been revoked because that March 18th emergency notification from the MHLW finally gave the government a mechanism to define exactly what a fake director looks like.
Right. The government laid out very specific criteria to disqualify these nominal directors, starting with the basic economics. If your association fee is higher than your compensation, which Kido refers to as an economic reversal, you're immediately flagged.
Which is just common sense. I mean, you don't pay your boss more than your boss pays you unless it's a scam.
They also target the substance of the work. If your job consists of just answering occasional online surveys or attending a fabricated study group once a year, you are disqualified.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Furthermore, if you have no actual decision-making power or authority over the organization, you fail the test entirely.
And if you fail that test, the financial hammer comes down so hard it could basically bankrupt you. Kido outlines this double punch penalty that is just brutal.
Oh, it's devastating.
First, the government retroactively cancels your social insurance. Second, you are forced to back pay your national health insurance for up to 2 years.
Right, so you thought you were cleverly saving money, and suddenly you owe 2 years of the absolute maximum NHI rate.
And the financial unraveling doesn't stop there. That massive 1.2 million yen fee you paid to the dummy association. Yeah, the association isn't going to refund that.
Definitely not. And perhaps the most devastating blow.
Yeah.
You have to return 70% of any medical costs you incurred while you were falsely enrolled in social insurance.
Let me make sure I'm wrapping my head around that. If I use this scheme and then had major surgery or an expensive hospital stay,
Yeah.
I suddenly owe the government a massive cash refund for the medical coverage I wasn't actually entitled to.
Exactly that. A 1 million yen intended saving could instantly transform into a 2 million yen sudden debt, leaving you with no insurance and a massive bill from the hospital.
That is terrifying.
What's fascinating here is the tool the government used to enforce this. They didn't just tweak a minor tax code. They weaponized the fundamental legal definition of corporate responsibility.
Right, because under Japanese company law, directors have incredibly heavy legal responsibilities.
Exactly. They're bound by a duty of care, the zenkan shugimu, and a duty of loyalty.
A director isn't just a fancy title you put in your email signature. It's a legal shield, but it's also a massive legal target.
A target that most of these freelancers completely ignored. If that dummy corporation you paid to join goes bankrupt.
Or worse, if the people running it are using it for fraud.
Right. If they're using it for money laundering, you are legally on the hook. You can't stand before a judge and argue, well, it was just a name on a piece of paper to save on taxes. I didn't actually do anything.
Because under the law, it is your literal job to know what the company is doing.
Precisely. Your willful ignorance does not save you from liability. You could be sued by creditors for damages. Loaning your legal identity to a black box organization just to save some money is an extraordinary risk.
Okay, so the MHLW sealed the trapdoors. The fake directors are getting hit with massive fines and potential lawsuits. The structural illusion is shattered. But this doesn't actually solve the problem, does it?
No, it doesn't even come close to solving the root problem. Because while this specific loophole involving associations is closed, the underlying unfairness of that 1.28 million yen NHI burden remains completely unchanged.
So human nature being what it is, people are already migrating to the next workaround.
Exactly. It's an endless game. Kido's report highlights what is already becoming the new trend: microcorporations.
Right. So if the government won't let you buy a director title from a fake association, you just incorporate yourself.
Yep. People are creating one-person companies and deliberately setting their own director pay at an impossibly low rate, like 60,000 yen a month.
Specifically to dodge the premiums.
He's got it. And as Kido astutely points out, claiming a salary of 60,000 yen a month makes absolutely no economic sense in the real world.
No, of course not. You couldn't secure a mortgage with that income, you couldn't rent a decent apartment, or even get approved for a standard credit card.
Which logically proves that the person has another massive hidden income source they are actually living off of. The microcorporation is just a theatrical prop for the insurance system.
So the current system just has this massive structural blind spot.
It does. If you have multiple streams of income, say, you earn 8 million yen from freelance design, but 60,000 yen from your microcorporation, the system essentially allows you to base your insurance premiums entirely on that microscopic corporate stream.
Without comprehensively checking the others. It's an algorithm that only looks at the data you want it to see.
Exactly. And Kido notes, this isn't isolated to domestic freelancers either. It is actively being abused by foreigners on business management visas who set up low-income shell companies specifically to access high-quality, cheap Japanese healthcare.
So what does this all mean? We are just playing an endless game of whack-a-mole with loopholes instead of fixing a broken board.
Pretty much.
You shut down the dummy associations, they open microcorporations, you aggressively audit microcorporations, they'll inevitably find something else. Because at the end of the day, a freelancer making 5 million yen simply cannot survive paying 1 million yen in insurance.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, a society where only those who know how to expertly manipulate the system benefit is fundamentally unhealthy. The root cause, an abnormally high national health insurance burden placed squarely on the working generation, absolutely must be dismantled and rebuilt.
Which brings us to Kido's proposed solutions for a truly fair society. Option 1 is basically the blunt force approach. Unify the entire system through taxes.
Right, just get rid of the separate insurance schemes entirely.
Yeah, abolish premiums and fund all healthcare through a general tax.
The economic reality of that option is severe, though. To fund a unified healthcare system purely through taxation, you would have to drastically raise the consumption tax across the board.
You'd be asking every single citizen, including the elderly and low-income workers, to pay a massive premium on every item they buy just to level the playing field for freelancers and small business owners.
Politically, that is almost impossible to sell.
Which leaves Kido's second option, which is a total technological overhaul. fully utilize the My Number system, Japan's national ID infrastructure, to perfectly track total household income across every single stream.
Right. So instead of the system blindly accepting your 60,000 yen microcorporation salary, the My Number system links everything: your bank accounts, your freelance invoices, your capital gains.
And everything.
Yeah, it calculates your insurance burden comprehensively based on your total actual reality, not just the single lowest income stream you handpick for the paperwork.
It's the ultimate technological enforcement. If the government has a panoptic view of all your income, the loopholes vanish instantaneously.
The blueprint and the reality are forcefully synchronized by the algorithm.
It really is a wild journey we've been on today. We started with an ingenious but highly illegal political scandal that forced the government's hand.
And we unpack the devastating double-punch financial penalties waiting for anyone trying to fake their way into corporate insurance.
We explored the very real legal danger of lending your name to a shell company. But most importantly, we've looked at what this desperate scramble for loopholes reveals about the fairness of the social systems we all rely on.
It really highlights the extreme friction between outdated 20th century institutions and modern working realities.
Absolutely. And I want to leave that final thought to you listening, because Kido's technological solution raises a huge question about what we are actually building here.
It does. Think about the My Number system, tracking every single one of your income streams with absolute perfection. On one hand, it completely eliminates these unfair loopholes.
Right. The heavy burden of the NHI is finally distributed evenly because everyone pays exactly their fair share based on total wealth.
But on the other hand, as our financial data becomes flawlessly visible and tracked by the government, does this perfectly visible system create the ultimate fair society?
Or do we end up sacrificing a crucial layer of privacy just to fix a broken insurance algorithm?
If the walls of the fortress have no trapdoors, you're entirely secure, sure,
Right.
but you're also completely contained. Are we building a fairer system or just a more inescapable maze? Something for you to ponder.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.